very few female professors, particularly in the UK. And we wanted to address that. They're all linked because it's all about making a change in the workplace, in education, and also for the individuals who really need to benefit from the work we do. So artificial intelligence is already playing a big part in research, and there are multiple kind of research labs and departments and new institutions being set up. But equally, science for policy, which is about using the data and evidence to better inform policy that might impact all of our lives. So I didn't graduate from university with a first class honours, but I went on to do my PhD, and that filled some of the gaps that I had from my undergraduate course.
Yeah.
And when I did my PhD, I used that as an opportunity to gain wider skills.
Hi, welcome to Pharma Now. Today with us we have Dr. Helen Pain, and we'll be doing a podcast session with her, understanding her professional journey, her take on the current generation of pharma industry and chemistry that she specializes in. She has an interesting take on AI that all of us are interested about. Let's get to know all of it firsthand from Helen herself. Hello, Helen.
Hi,
Welcome to Pharma Now.
thank you.
Let us begin with your professional and personal journey. So your career began with a PhD in coordination chemistry, and then you evolved into leadership roles at Royal Society of Chemistry. Can you please walk us through your career progression, like how your early academic days were and how you got into leadership roles at Royal Society?
Gosh, that's a very big question.
Yeah.
So let me start at the beginning. I started doing my BSc in chemistry and then opted to stay on to do a PhD in chemistry. And it was at that point I started to specialise in organometallics and coordination chemistry. I'd always enjoyed chemistry. I loved the hands-on, the practical part of it. I'd always done maths at school, and that was my main subject. But when I went to university, I found that chemistry offered me the variety of activity, both practical in the lab, but also the theory and also the mathematical kind of aspect, which really propelled me to carry on doing my degree and then PhD. The organometallic part of it is because it's very colourful. In organic chemistry, I was doing organometallics, so I was doing a lot of synthesizing new molecules and complexes that had not been synthesized before. I was studying variable temperature NMR, so I was looking at the impact under kind of very low temperature. And one of the highlights of my PhD was to discover a mechanism that's called the TikTok mechanism. I won't go into the details of it, but it was we published a number of papers from it. And it was through my PhD in doing coordination chemistry that I began to work very closely with the community, because I went to conferences. I started to network with other PhD students and other academics. And that's what really motivated me at the early stages, was the fact I loved my chemistry. What I really enjoyed was working within the community and working with the people. So when it came to the time of applying for jobs, I said to my supervisor, when he asked me what I wanted to do, I said, I want to go and work for the Royal Society of Chemistry, and I want to organise conferences, because I decided that would utilise my planning skills, my desire to work with people, but also would be very dependent on my background in chemistry. And I was extremely fortunate at the time that I was applying for jobs. A job was advertised at the Royal Society of Chemistry. They wanted a younger chemist liaison officer, somebody to come and work for the organisation, to work with students, and I was fortunate to be offered that role. And then I have spent my last 30 years working my way through the organisation, but always working with the community, and that's what's really driven kind of my career to date, and ultimately how I was very in a fortunate position to be able to be offered the role of chief executive 3 or 4 years ago.
So like you said, it was meant to be.
Meant to be, always meant to be.
That's amazing. Then shifting from direct sciences, shifting from chemistry into more of a people role, more of a leadership role. How was that transition? What sparked your interest into working with communities?
When I was doing my PhD, I was good at the science. I enjoyed it. I was, I published papers. I think the one thing that was missing for me was that deep curiosity about the subject itself. And also there was no female role models in the chemical sciences when I was a student, and particularly getting in my PhD. Very, very few of my female kind of friends went into academia, and the opportunity didn't seem to be there for that at the time. So I don't think I even thought about it. I don't think it was something that I stopped to think about, should I carry on in academia? But I was motivated by the business side and the kind of marketing side of roles. And I don't know where I got that kind of inspiration from, but it might have come from when I was doing interviews for some of the industrial companies I applied to. It seemed to be that they offered a wide variety of jobs, and I think some of the ones in marketing appealed to me at the time. So ultimately, when I went to the RSC, and I look back now and I see a really clear link between doing my PhD and the skills I needed for leadership. One thing I will share is that when you have things that don't go well, and in chemistry we all know experiments don't always work, and you fail at things, learning through those failures is a really, really good foundational skill to develop and learn from when you go into leadership and management positions.
Right. So, Helen, you have led global initiatives in inclusion and diversity. You have a take on that while shaping policies at the Science Council and ITSS. What are the key challenges that you faced while addressing these challenges, and how did you navigate through those challenges?
So some of the big challenges that we face, particularly around inclusion and diversity, is the fact when we really started to look at the data and the evidence, probably about 10, 15 years ago, it was very clear. And to start with the women in chemistry, and I mentioned about my experience as a PhD student, very few female professors, particularly in the UK. And we wanted to address that. We wanted to understand more about why were women at the end of their PhDs not choosing to stay in academia. So we looked at a number of reasons for that and put in place some action points to follow through on. But it means change, and often it means culture change. And if you're looking for culture change within a community, it doesn't just take a year or 2 years, it's a long-term investment. And we started to look at gender. We have tackled several other aspects of inclusion and diversity, and run some very important campaigns all based on evidence and data. And the thing I always say is we can make lots of commitments to do things differently, to improve the conditions or the accessibility for those choosing to study chemistry or in the workplace, but we also have to take action. So we've been really focused on action planning, and that links to my work with the Science Council, the Technician Commitment, and the new Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy in the UK, is about the role of the technician. So we work a lot in academia with research students and researchers, and also in industry, but it's the technical skills and the technicians' roles which are really underpin the ability for everybody else to deliver. And we wanted technicians to have equal access and recognition for the work they did, and that was achieved through what we call the Technicians Commitment, which is a series of action points that, particularly in the UK, universities sign up to, so they support individuals through their career. So they're all linked because it's all about making a change in the workplace, in education, and also for the individuals who really need to benefit from the work we do.
Got it. Perfect. So the thing is, being a scientist, you're very much focused on the data.
Yeah.
You rely on data. We got to know that from your answer. Let's focus on now. Let's shift into understanding the dependence of pharma on chemistry. What challenges do you think current generation of chemistry can solve to, elevate pharma industry further? Maybe we can avoid another pandemic, maybe stuff like that. How can we prepare ourselves for challenges like that using chemistry?
So the pharma industry is so important, and as you say, we saw the importance of pharma in the very quick rollout of vaccines during the pandemic. But of course, pharma is underpinned by chemistry in terms of the chemistry, the research, the fundamental research that needs to be done way before new pharmaceuticals are brought to market. So there's a whole value chain and kind of research kind of piece there. So chemistry provides that fundamental insight. So much of the novel kind of research that's done, that's published, will provide some of the building blocks and the kind of inspiration and innovation for future kind of pharma application. So chemistry needs to be absolutely hand in hand with pharma. It's a fundamental part of the whole the work that's done. Equally, chemistry has to be done alongside other disciplines. So we know that we can't get a new pharmaceutical or a new drug to market without it going through a number of different stages. Chemistry is absolutely there at the beginning and also at touch points throughout those stages. But also working alongside biological sciences, work alongside a lot of the computer science, mathematical sciences. They're all needed to enable a strong pharma industry. And again, chemistry is underpinning, and it's there throughout absolutely every kind of stage through that life cycle.
Then the regulatory and policy aspect of pharma industry, there's a big whole sector of pharma that depends, that all works in the regulatory sector.
Yes.
And you have been involved in policy making a lot. So what do you see as the challenges that are currently in the regulatory and policy making aspects?
So in terms of regulatory, particularly in kind of for pharma, obviously having really clear policies and regulations, both within countries, but also that can transcend kind of geographical boundaries, big borders, because that too is important. And one of the challenges that we do have is that where particular regulations apply in one country, but they don't apply in another, or vice versa. And that can sometimes hold up the development and the release of new products to market. But again, it's about making sure that the chemistry is built on really solid foundations of research. And, for example, when we do novel research, which ultimately will be fed into the pharma industry, the peer review aspect of the research that's done at the very beginning is also very important. So it's all, again, it builds up the kind of the picture of policy and regulation that's needed in pharma. From a raw scientific chemistry perspective, we seek to use our community and our members to input to the development of that policy. So that could be members who are working in industry, it could be members who are working in higher education and research establishments, particularly where they're working in partnership with particular companies.
Got it. Now, about technical skills for the future, with the establishment of Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy, what skills do you think are most crucial for future scientists and pharma professionals to stay relevant in rapidly evolving industry?
Well, first and foremost is the understanding of and the utilisation of artificial intelligence, because that absolutely is the future of many of the roles that we all have, but equally the science and the application and the development of new products coming to market. I think the other technical skills are, there is one which is kind of underrated, and that is the skill that we all need to develop, which is about communicating the work and the science that we do, because it has to be a really strong drive for public to understand the importance of science, but also to ensure policymakers and funders understand the importance of science as well. So that feeds into continuing to invest in research and development. I think the other technical skills that are needed is the ability to adapt very quickly. So it's more of a capability than a skill, but adapt very quickly to new technologies, new ways of measuring data, new ways of capturing data, and new ways of analysing data as well as the continuing to build capability in the more practical side of the technical roles.
So the first technical skill that you mentioned, AI. Can we talk more about the dependence of the interrelation between AI and chemistry? How can we, make it more fruitful? Maybe work on that. What are the challenges that people are facing, and where do you see it evolving with the rapid pace that it has?
Again, that's a very big question, and I certainly don't have all the answers, because the world of artificial intelligence is changing daily. And I think the first thing to do is recognise that artificial intelligence is an important part of both the chemistry research and development, but also the application of chemistry, as well as the roles that rely on chemistry, so particularly in terms of the workforce that the chemical industry and other related industries are reliant on. So artificial intelligence is already playing a big part in research, and there are multiple kind of research labs and departments and new institutions being set up to try and maximise the benefits of how AI can better predict how, for example, in pharma, better predict how new pharmaceuticals are going to react, better get to target molecules more quickly, be able to assess the data that is driven by clinical research or clinical trials more quickly. So that's a whole aspect of where artificial intelligence will both speed up processes, and that might be important when we have to respond to the next, big global challenge, but in particular, another pandemic. But also the ability of artificial intelligence helping us to see what is possible in the future. So to predict, what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So the opportunity for AI to help predict some of those future challenges is as important as using artificial intelligence to actually, to within the chemistry itself. So I think there is a huge amount of work currently underway to assess the true possibilities, but also recognising, there are risks involved, and also there are challenges with artificial intelligence because we want to invest and enable the right use and certainly not the wrong use of it. And of course that plays back into, which is a really bigger part of chemistry, is the ethical use of in chemistry.
So how should we navigate through the challenges of right use of AI in chemistry? Is there any particular ideology that you have behind it?
Oh, I don't know if I have a particular ideology about the right use. I think it's about the community recognising the importance, the community working together. I think it's about the right levels of funding to explore what the uses and opportunity are. I think it's about, again, disciplines coming together and working together
also,
to develop that.
Maybe policy making also can play an important role in this?
Absolutely. So, ensuring that there is opportunity to influence and guide policy for the use of AI in chemistry and its applications is key. And that's about making sure that we do, at the Royal Society of Chemistry, we have two approaches. We influence policy for science and also science for policy. And the difference between the two parts are the policy that we need to enable science to be practiced, and that does, with regulations, etc. But equally, science for policy, which is about using the data and evidence to better inform the policy that might impact all of our lives.
Also, you guys have been working on addressing the United Nations to set up a policy
panel, yes.
Yeah, a policy panel to address a chemical waste challenge. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, so similar to the International Policy Panel on Climate Change, which was set up to address, obviously, the big challenge that we're all very familiar with. We have worked very closely with the UK government, particularly with one of our government departments, DEFRA, but also with a wide community of stakeholders globally to support and influence the United Nations to set up an intergovernmental science policy panel for chemicals, waste and pollution. And the reason for that is we know that chemistry and chemicals have played a huge part in the modern world, and they have, that has led to lots of new materials and developments, and tackling new energy sources and drugs, etc. But with that comes some of the use of chemicals that have led to pollution, and we need to tackle that as much as we need to tackle the new the new ways of tackling the global challenges. So putting that policy panel in place is an important part of the work that we can do.
Right. Now, you being at a leadership role, what advice do you have for aspiring leaders in the community? How would you, if you were younger, what would you tell yourself?
So one thing I would say is you do not have to be high performing academically throughout your kind of, your school days or your university days. For me, it's kind of leadership is about using the capability and abilities that you have in a way that helps to inspire and motivate others to be able to, lead organisations or lead programs or projects. So I would say from my experience, I have always been inquisitive, so I've sought to understand the problems that need to be solved and then looked for kind of opportunities to provide some of the solutions. I've always worked directly with people, so the community aspect's very important. I've used every opportunity to further my kind of skills and my knowledge. So I didn't graduate from university with a first class honours, but I went on to do my PhD, and that filled some of the gaps that I had from my undergraduate course. And when I did my PhD, I used that as an opportunity to gain wider skills. So I made sure I took on roles during my PhD that were about organisation and planning and, again, working with people. So for me, it starts from that kind of, that very start of my kind of career. The other thing, as I mentioned earlier, learning from failures, things that don't go well, things that you don't pass first time, things that don't go, aren't right, and you might have to really put a lot of effort. All of that, I can guarantee that when people later on in their careers, they'll use those. They'll think back to those incidents where they failed at something and think, what did I do then to get through that? And then you multiply that, and then in your leadership role, you can use that kind of skill. But it is about taking every opportunity. So that would be my advice.
So it's not really important that you have a perfect academic record, but
no.
you have to understand what are the problems that community is facing, and then work on their solutions. That's amazing.
And also a very healthy dose of what I would call common sense. I'm not sure if that translates as well, but
Excuse me.
The ability to think through a problem and apply it in real time, in real life.
Thinking on feet.
Exactly, thinking on your feet. And not expecting everything to go right first time or everything to be perfect. And don't strive for perfection. You will learn through doing things and trying new things and doing some things well and doing some things not so well. But also learning that you may succeed faster or more if you work with somebody else to get to the solution. So you don't have to do it on your own. It's about working with other people.
Yeah, right. If you're working alone, there's a limit to what you can achieve. But rather, if you're working with a team, you can exponentially raise that limit up. That's amazing. Then let's wrap it up with one last question. If you could describe in one sentence why chemistry matters to the world, what would you say?
In one sentence?
In one sentence.
Chemistry is absolutely in everything. It's all around us, and it will provide the solutions to the big global challenges.
Perfect. That should wrap our session. Thank you so much for all the amazing insights.
Thank you.
All the aspiring leaders in the pharma community will thank you for sharing our journey with us. Thank you so much.